Hi guys! Welcome to our book club. Time passes by so quickly, so the time for our second video has arrived. Remember that we are reading Persepolis, a graphic novel written by Marjane, an Iranian French girl who is at the same time the protagonist of our story. It tells us the story of her childhood, adolescence, and young adulthood in her country. This video will cover from chapter 9 to chapter 16, so let's just start.
We gather around and chat all day. New words to learn in every way.
Welcome back guys. As I told in the introduction of this video, today we will cover from chapter 9 to chapter 16. And before that, let's just remember what happened in previous chapters. So at the beginning, we know the main characters. We know that the protagonist's name is Marjane, and she and her parents are living in Iran, a country that has been always on the target of invaders because its location and because of the oil. So when Marjan is 8 years old, she is telling us that the Islamic Cultural Revolution began. What that meant that they needed to start using the veils, and also that schools were split, one for girls and one for boys. And at the same time, like the country is getting tired of the king, that is called the Shah, and well, they are demonstrating, they want like some changes, so they go to the streets, they demonstrate, they raise their voices, but at the same time we have that the king is against it. So we have a lot of executioners, we have a lot of fights, we have people in prison because of that. And well, after a very long time, after a couple of years, finally they push the king to be overthrown, and they are so happy because they will have a new beginning in their country. So also we get to know some secondary characters. For example, we have the maid that considers Marjan as her sister, but it is not, so we have here like a love story. And also we get to know some other characters like the uncle Anush, who was in prison for 30 years because he was against the king and he has these communist ideas. At the same time, we get to know some other two characters that we would just see again in these new chapters. And well, everybody's happy, everybody is not sure about what will happen in the country. So let's just start. Let's see what happened. So as you may see, I am already sharing my screen. We have here the chapter number 9. It's called The Ship. And let's just continue with the first page. We have here that after Uncle Anush was released, he's living with Marjan and her parents. So she is describing that almost all night they have these conversations about what will happen with their country. So while Uncle Anush says like, oh, everything it's okay, but like it's difficult that they start with these Marxist ideas and more because they don't know, they are not educated. So it is just that they will create these it says nationalism or religion. So one of the both are the possibilities, no more, because people they don't know about other ideas. And well, here we have that Marjan is always, like getting more information. She is very curious about everything. So here we have that she says that 99% of the population voted for the Islamic Republic. And the dad of Marjan says like, that's true. That's not true, sorry. Like how come people is believing that? I don't know anybody that voted for this Islamic revolution, for this Islamic republic. So well, these kind of people we have here, Anush. So how come? And well, Anush is like, hey, everything will be alright. She's just repeating what she hears in TV and the radio. So later on, we have here the situation that start happening after they don't know what, after the king was overthrown, that was not in the power. They said like, oh yeah, this revolution won, like we will have a new country. but everybody is uncertain about it. So because of that, some people start leaving the country. They don't want a country that doesn't know what will happen. So here we have that Marjane is saying goodbye to one of her friends. And it seems that she really likes him, so it's a little bit sad about it. But well, later on, we have that not just her friend, a lot of her relatives just left the country. And we have a conversation between Marjan's mother and father that they are trying to decide, like, hey, isn't better for us to just leave the country as the rest? And Marjan's father says, like, for what? Here you have your house, here you have a job. If we just go to another country, I will be a driver and you will be a maid. So better to be here. They will return when everything is okay. So everybody's like, oh, cross fingers. Let's hope so. So here we have that suddenly one day Marjan's father received a call, and he's very sad about it because the news it says that Mosen, one of the guys that was released when the king was overthrown, the same time as Anush, the same time as others, he's dead. He was found drowned in the bath. So Marjan's mother says, like, oh, that is a murder. The people kill him, and it's right because it says later on that there are some other people that they are killing who they're revolutionaries. They don't want these ideas of democracy. They don't want the communism. They want just to have they call the fundamentalists. That is just to have the religion, to like very nationalist. And since they are quite strict in that, they are called fundamentalists. So here we have that Mosen was killed, and then they are looking for Siamak, that is the other guy that at the same time is the father of Marjan's friend. So they don't find that. They just kill Siamak's sister, and they say, like, well, what happened with them? And later on, they get to know that they just run away. They run away among a flock of sheep. That's why the chapter is called like that. And Uncle Anush has, like these feelings that something is not really going well. So the next chapters we have that Marjane is asking for her uncle, like, hey, my uncle told me that he will pick me up from school. Like, what happened with him? And her parents are like, oh, he needed to go to Russia. He was in a rush, so that's why he couldn't say goodbye. And Marjane has this feeling that it's not right. Something happened, but they don't want to tell me. Later on, we have a conversation between Marjan's father and Marjan, and finally, she knew that her uncle was caught by the police, and well, she's like, well, I want to see him. So they take her to the prison, and here we have that Uncle Anush is in prison. He knows that he will probably, well, not probably, it will be the last time they see each other, so they are saying goodbye. And Uncle Anush says to Marjan that she cannot forget. She cannot forget the history of her country, and also she cannot forget people who is raising their voices and they want a better country. So here we have that it is executed, and then Marjan it's really, really mad at God. So she's like, I don't want to speak with you anymore, like get out of here. And she said, like, well, at the end, what else can happen? And well, here we have that a war began. So a war, because remember that in the introduction, Marjans tell us that it has been some confrontations among Iran and Iraq. So here the war began between Iraq and Iran because Iraq started bombing Iran. So here we have in the second chapter that we will check today, that is chapter number 10, the trip. So here, Marjane's parents, they have also these kind of feelings that, well, if they are in war, if it's something, it's like happening, they really don't know if they will have the chance to go to vacations, if they have the chance to go out of the country. So they said like, okay, let's just go to this trip. And they go to, oh yeah, also here they mentioned that schools will be closed. Remember that in the past book said that the Shah was chosen by God, and that like he was a ruler that was doing everything according to the to God, and he was doing great things. So here there is an announcement on TV that they said like schools will be closed until they fix all the material, until they just finally have a very nice education plan. Otherwise, if they continue going to school, they won't learn anything, or they can learn something wrong. So here we have that Marjane is a little bit sad because she wants to be like Marie Curie. She wants to discover some elements, and she doesn't care if she dies of cancer because she discovered these new elements. On the contrary, she says that probably when she arrives the age of Marie Curie, she will have kids. So she's sad about it. She's uncertain about her future. And well, I think that they are not really, I spoiled you a little bit, they are not really going to the trip yet, but it is in the chapter. So here there are a lot of things happening. So Iran was bombarded, and then the schools are closed. And then remember that in previous chapters we know that the veil was still not obligatory, but the women have to use veil because like the hair will excite men, and more. So here we have a very very raw situation that struggled my heart a little bit. Here we have that one day Marjan's father and Marjan are going to pick her mother up because her car is not working anymore. And then when we have the scene, she's crying. And she's crying so loudly because she said like, oh, I just encountered some men, and they told me that I need to use the veil, otherwise they will just rape me and they will just throw my body in the trash. So she is very concerned about it, and that's why she spent some days in her house without going out. So finally, we have here that again, now the veil it's obligatory, and they said that it is obligatory because let's just read. It says, women's hair emanates rays that excite men. That's why women should cover their hair. If in fact it is really more civilized to go without the veil, then animals are more civilized than we are. So they are comparing that if we cannot just follow one rule, so we are just animals. So that's why the veil starts being obligatory. Also, they start telling us that not just the veil, not just schools, not just like the society is it changing, but also the way people dress. They said that if they are fundamentalists, if they are very strict with religion, very strict with the ideas, so they are using these well, it has a name. I really don't remember. They mention it here, the chador. The chador is this very, very long dress with the veil. And they said that there are two kind of people. So people, the fundamentalists, and the ones that they are a little bit modern. So fundamentalists, talking about women, they are using the chador, they are using the veil, no hair, no nothing. And on the contrary, the modern women, they are using the veil, but you could see a little bit of their hair. And also the way of dressing, it's not so strict, it's probably a little bit more modern, as you can see in the picture. On the contrary, with guys, I have heard about it, but I wasn't sure about it. It says that like in Islam, the religion forbids just shaving, so that's why they all have beards. And fundamentalists, they have beards, they have a long shirt. On the contrary, modern people or progressive men, as you may see here in the picture, they are using mustache or they are using very short beards, and they have the short stock, like fajadas. And also they mentioned that neckties, corbatas, are quite forbidden or they were bad seen because they reminds to the Western and the capitalism and modern things and stuff, and they are against it. So here we have a very funny picture when they said like, oh, look at the neighbors, look at that lady, like she's using, like the long dress. How come? Just last summer she was in a miniskirt showing some meat, and well, everybody changing. So because everybody changing, Marjane's mother tells Marjane like, hey, if somebody asks, you spend your free time just praying. And Marjane says like, well, at the beginning it was a little bit difficult to lie, but later on it was easy to do it. So we have here that she lies about praying 10, 11, 12 times per day. Then here we have that still people, they want to protest, they don't want to use the veil, they want their rights, especially women, because they say it's a little bit uncomfortable. So Marjane and her parents, they go to a demonstration, but during the demonstration they saw how people, like were beating and hurting women, so they just run, they were scared of it. And Marjane says like, for the very first time I saw violence, so she's scared about it. And finally, because of the facts, all the situations that happened, they finally decide to go to this trip that they visit Spain and Italy for 3 weeks. And at the end of the chapter, we have these last images that they said they saw the news on TV. They couldn't understand Spanish, so they were saying, oh, there's something black, like covering Iran. What does it mean? We don't know. So when they return and the grandmothers pick them up, she's a little bit anxious and she doesn't want to tell them that the war just began. So they are a little bit, like in shock because the war just started. Like, war between who? Oh, well, we have the Iranians and we have the Iraq. So Marjane says like, oh, I'm old enough, I want to defend my country, and again, like Iraq is invading us after, it says 140, no, 1400 years, sorry. So here we have this image, and that is the end of the chapter. So let's continue with chapter 11. So here we have that is called the F-14s. What is the F-14s? The planes, the jets. So one time Marjane goes to her father's office, they are working, and suddenly they start listening some sounds, and then like a boom. And well, Marjane says like, oh yeah, that is our army. And her father says like, that is not ours. Because they don't sound like that. They don't look like that. So they saw how the planes were just, like going very down, and they just go up and disappear. So they said that Iraqi may have bombed Tehran, that is the capital of Iran. And well, like Marjane has this feeling like, oh, I hate them, I want to fight against them, I want to defend my country. But at the end, well, it doesn't happen. So here Marjane's in the way back because they say like, oh, let's go with your mom, she should be very worried. They are having a conversation in the car, and Marjane says or asks her parent like, hey dad, you have military let's say, what does it say, formation, well, military formation, like, are you going to go to the war, are you going to defend our country? And her father said like, no way, why for, no, of course, like, I don't want to fight, and that is not the only way of fighting. So finally they arrive to their house, The mom was just, having a shower, so um, she didn't know anything about the war, but well, okay. So later on, we have that still, as I told you, Marjane is having these feelings that she wants fire, she wants to see blood, she wants to defend her country. And she said, like, oh, we have some jets, we should just bomb also Iraq in order to demonstrate that we also can do it and we can defend us and more. But her dad says, like, it says here, like, let's just here. It says, bomb Baghdad, you need pilots for that. After the generals blew their chance at a coup d'etat, they were all jailed or executed. So remember that the coup d'etat, it's a word took from French. It is el golpe de Estado. And they said that when they were in this revolution, not revolution, and demonstrating, not demonstrating, the pilots were just caught. They were put in prison. So the Marjane's father is explaining Marjane that in order to bomb, they need pilots and they need to be released. So since they are not released, nothing will happen. And Marjane says, like, oh, but I have a friend and her father is a pilot. And now that I remember, she didn't come to school for a while. So probably, like that happened. But she didn't mention anything. So later on, we have that, like one day they are watching TV and suddenly the national anthem began to sound on the TV. And they say, like, oh, we haven't heard this. It was forbidden, it says here. It had been forbidden and replaced by the new government's Islamic hymn. So, like, because they haven't heard their anthem, the from Iran, the first one, they were overwhelmed. They had this heartwarming feeling and they start crying. And later on, the news said that the pilots were released, they bombed Iraq, and the reason why they have the anthem is because as a petition, the pilots petition says that, okay, we bomb Iraq, but you have to put our anthem, and they did that. So finally, we have that at school Marjane is, like, hey, yeah, your father is a hero, like this. Well, before that, she wanted to ask her friend about her father and what happened, but she couldn't do it at the beginning because she read the environment and she said, like, oh, I shouldn't. It seems to be something negative. So during class that day, the teacher asked them to write about the war. And Marjane says, like, oh, excellent, I already know what to write about, Iraq invaded us some years ago, and now they want to invade us again, so they start this war. And she explained it to her class, and the teacher says, like, well, that's okay. But it says here, when the time of the girl, her name is Pardis, Pardis' report was by far the best. It was a letter to her father in which she promised to take care of her mother and little brother. And that's why I told you that, like at the end, Marjane got the courage to tell her friend, like, hey, your father is a hero. And her friend answered her, like, I don't want my father to be a hero. I prefer him to be in jail and alive. So Marjane says, like, oh, and she kept this feeling inside of her. So that is the end of the chapter, and then we have the next one that is called the U-Walls. So here we have that because of the war began, the same thing that happened here during pandemic and other situations, people start panicking. So when they go to the supermarket, people is fighting for some products. Almost all the shelves are empty. And Marjane's mother tried to split two women that they were fighting for a product. And the women are like, oh yeah, you shouldn't, like, tell us anything. This is not your problem. And Marjane's mother says, like, oh, we are just like animals. So if the store are just closed for one day, we will eat each other. So later on, we know that also Marjane's mother it's it's panicking, and well, because she says like, oh, we need to buy more and keep it just in case. So at the same time, like, because everybody's panicking, everybody is like buying things since they don't know what will happen. We have here a situation with the gas, with gasoline. So Marjane's father is like, hey, do you have some jerry cans, bidones, like containers? And the mother says like, for what? And the guy, the father, explains like, hey, I need to drive. In order to you to have this life, I need to work, I need to go very far, and if we don't have gasoline, I cannot do it. So at the end, they decide to go to the gas station, and they want to fill this jerry can. But the guy, the seller, says like, this is not possible, because if I do it, there won't be gasoline for the rest. So at the end, they ask like, "What is happening?" Because we don't have any news on TV. Like, we don't know what is happening really. And the guy says like, "Oh, you don't know about it? Well, it says here. Of course, they are not saying anything. It's a huge mess. Iraq bombed the refinery and Abadan." And says like, "Oh, Abadan," because Marjan's mother has a friend that is living in the area, so it's like, oh no, like, what happened with them? What happened with her family? It says that her name, the mother's friend, is Mali. She's married and she has 2 kids. So as soon as they arrive to their house, they are trying to call Mali. They are trying to know what is happening, if they are good or not, and said like, I cannot contact her, and I am calling her mother, but her mother is deaf. She doesn't hear. So there's no communication. And also they mention here that because some borders are being bombed, so people start going up. They are moving, like to the center. They are moving to the north of the country. So at night, somebody is knocking the door and says like, oh, like, who is at this time? And it was Mali. It was, like, Marjan's friend. And they said like, oh, everything is destroyed. We lost everything. And the husband says like, oh, this is everything we can save, and those are some jewels, algunas joyas. So also we have that Marjane is taking care of the 2 kids. She is about to prepare chocolate, but she realizes that her father is not very. He doesn't like the husband, Mali's husband, because Marjane's father says that he is a little bit materialistic. So we have a scene when he says like, "Oh, this is my house, and it cost me this, and it cost me that, and this and that." So that's why they don't get along really well. And later on, we have again, like, the scene in a supermarket, and in this supermarket we have a very sad situation because there's nothing. They are trying to survive with whatever they found. And later on, we have the conversation between 2 women, and they said like, oh, like, right now we have a lot of refugees, and they are prostituting, and not just that, like, also we have to take care of our husbands. But we know that people from the south is always, like, troublemakers, and well, now we don't even have food. So they are talking bad things about their own people. And we have a scene at the end of the chapter that Mali is telling, like, I feel bad. I feel bad not just because I lost everything in seconds. I feel bad because also my own people is criticizing me. Is, like it says, spitting, escupiendo. So, well, Marjane again says, like, I feel ashamed because, like, I am from this place, but at the same time I feel so bad about her. I feel so bad because, the situation they are living. Later on, um well, also, forget to mention that Mali and her family just stay with Marjane and her parents for a week. So after that week, we have here a situation that there are a lot of martyrs. Everybody goes to war, and a lot of people is dying. So the newspapers are full of martyrs, are full of pictures of people who just passed away. And Marjane is asking her mother like, "Hey mom, don't you feel sorry about it?" And her mom says like, "Yeah, but we need to continue living." So it seems that it's like this Iranian way of thinking. It's aspersion that they have, like to continue, they have to resonate and continue living. But they mention something important that I guess it's important to highlight. They mention here that according to the Shai tradition, when an unmarried man dies, a nuptial chamber is built for him. That's the way the dead man can symbolically attain carnal knowledge. So, since a lot of people is sent to war, some of them are not married. And since they are not married, there's a tradition. I look for it, what is Shite. And it seems that the Islamic religion has two branches. One of them is the Shite, and according to those traditions they have to build the chamber like this camera, well, sorry with Spanish, a camera like this box, in order to give the lad chance, like for them to learn about women, about sex, and moreover that they don't mention here, but that's the idea. And it says like there were so many, so a lot of men just died virgins. And also here Marjan says that because there are a lot of martyrs, there are a lot of people dying in her school, they start also mourning, and they start also these kind of actions that includes a little bit of pain. So the act consists in just like hitting their chest for some time. And well, Marjan says that at the beginning she was shocked, but it wasn't so bad as she thought, because like they just needed to do this. There were some other people that because of the rituals they start like hitting themselves with change, they start hitting them a little bit stronger, or even like cutting themselves. But Marjan says that that was considered like something, a macho thing. So for people that really, really want to demonstrate something, and we say like, oh, that's like a little bit extreme for the rest. So here also we said that because there were so many martyrs, it arrived a point where these didn't have a really deep meaning. It was just like something routinary. So also it was boring. And she started not making laugh of people that died, but she started to make fun of the acts, to try to be a little bit funnier. So we have here that every time they have the chance, they were mocking their teachers. They were, like trying to laugh. So we have here a situation where in winter, women needed to knit some hoods, like some caps. Well, some hats, some hoods, like pasamontañas. And when they needed to decorate a room because of the anniversary of the revolution, they did it with toilet paper. So at the end, they are grounded, they are suspended, and they call their parents. And their parents are like, well, they are kids. They are, like they need to play. They don't need to do this kind of stuff. And the teachers are like, well, it is what it is. Like right now we have to behave and we have to follow the rules. And we have a funny comment. So like everybody's mad, and at the end, Marjan's father says, "If hair is as stimulating as you say, then you need to shave your mustache." So well, the teacher it just like stood. She was in shock. She didn't know what to answer. And later on, we have a very very sad experience, situation, anecdote. Because remember the maid they have? Well, it seems that they changed it. So here we have a lady that is called Nasreen. And Nasreen, she has kids. But it says that my oldest son, oh well, not my, her oldest son, he received a key, a plastic key. And they said like, oh, you should go to war, this is the key of paradise, this key will give you the entrance to a lot of food, a lot of wellness, women, like it will be better than Disneyland. So they were convincing young kids to go to the war because this key that they were giving them will open the door to paradise. And the lady is so sad because she doesn't know how to convince her kid that those are lies. So Marjane's mother says like, okay, bring him. I will tell him that it's not real. So next day or the same day when Marjane's return from school, they they are having this conversation where the mother, Marjane's mother, is telling the guy, the kid, that is not true. And he's like, come on, you need to study, you need to grow up, you need to do a lot of things, maybe you can be a professionist. And the guy is like, I will marry her. So just because of that they stop, like the conversation. But Marjane reminds her cousin, and her cousin is also 14 years old, but he's from a different, he's living in another place. So she called him and she's like, hey, her name is Payman. So hey Payman, by any chance in your school did anybody has give you the keys of paradise? And the kid is like, the keys of what? So they realize later on that the kids were giving just to poor kids, just to poor people. So we have here another cousin that he was on leave, on permit, and he's explaining like, yes, like we see every day buses full of kids with these keys, and then like they are in a trance because of the songs, because of the things they are telling them, and suddenly everybody dies in a minefield. So we have a lot of carnage, a lot of people just dying because nothing. And well, like Marjane is a little bit sad of it, but at the same time she mentions that for the very first time she goes to a party, and she's happy because of that. Continuing the book, we have the wine. So remember that everybody is living in a very strict society, everything is forbidden. So here they said that because of the bombs, they build a shelter in the basement of the building where everybody's living. So every time the sirens are ringing, the sirens are on, they ran to the shelter. And then after it, they are calling everybody like, hey, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? And some people are, some people are not. Later on, we have that not just the clothes change, but also the interaction. So Marjane's mother is covering the windows with some tape in order to protect them if there's a bump, so the windows won't, like hurt them. But also she is putting some dark curtains in order to protect them from the neighbors. And when Marjane's asked like, why? And she says like, well, we have some neighbors very very strict, they are following all the rules. So if they see that we have parties, if they see that we have some reunions, they will call the police. And she's putting an example with a family that they were planning a party, so the police arrived, they took the family and they were hitting the guy so badly that the guy couldn't walk anymore. And also they received a fine, a very considerable fine. So they don't want that, and that's why they avoid it. And later on, we have that even if everything was forbidden, still they have some parties, still they have some reunions. And they said, like, without the reunions, it won't be verbal, like the same thing with the pandemic that happened here. that since everybody was, like just in their houses, not having contact, they start developing psychological problems like depression. So in order not to happen that, they said that the parties are necessary. There's a party when there's a newborn cousin, so they are celebrating it, and they said that even inside their family they have an uncle that is producing wine. So they are celebrating, even if it is forbidden, they have it, they are spending a really nice time until the sirens start ringing. So the mother of the newborn, she got panic and she just, like gave the baby to Marjane and she ran. So Marjane says that since then she doubts about the maternal instinct that everybody's talking about. And well, at the end of the party, they are going to their home and they are stopped by the police. So since they are stopped by the police, they said like, open your mouth, say ah, like your breath smells like alcohol, you have been drinking. And like the guy is being a little bit like, I have the power, so I can tell you whatever I want. And Marjane's father says like, hey, take it easy, like I'm older than you and I have been in this country for more than you. And they start maybe arguing, but Marjane's mother says like, hey, like how old are you? 16? I can be your mother. I have a 12-year-old girl in the car. So please let us go. And the police, he says like, okay, I will let you go. But just because, like I see that you have a necktie, I see that you have a mustache, and they seem to be very modern, I will go to your house and see what do you have. And see what you have. So during the trip, Marjane's father is like, hey, you need to flush all the alcohol down. You need to hide everything. I will try to make time with the police here outside the house. So when they arrive to the house, the grandmother says like, oh, I have diabetes. I need to take my medicine. And the police is like, oh, just like my mother. Oh yeah, you can go, you can go. So while they go, and the father is talking with the police, they are flushing all the alcohol, they are hiding everything. And finally, when the father enters to the house, they are like, what is the police? And the father says like, police my ass, like he is not really following the rules. He at the end wanted money. So the father is like, well, did you throw all the alcohol down, like the toilet? And they say like, yes. And he says like, oh, now I need some alcohol in order to distress. But well, that happened. So that is the end of the chapter, and then we have the cigarette. So here the cigarette, Marjane is telling us that because of war, it's not so unpopular having friends from different ages. So she's talking, remember that she's 12 years old. So she's talking with girls, 14 years old girls, and they are like, oh yes, the war, oh yeah, this, I heard this in the news. And well, when the bell rang, everybody need to return to classes. But the girl says like, oh, we have physical education, we really don't want to exercise, so we are just, like skipping classes and going for some burgers and hot dogs. Do you want to come? And Marjane says like, burgers? Where? And they mention a neighborhood, that this neighborhood seems to be the only one that is in good conditions, so everybody goes there to spend a nice time, especially young people. And well, finally, Marjane says like, I'm brave. This is the second time I will break the rules. The first time was a year ago, 2 years ago, when I went to the demonstration that I shouldn't. So I will go with my friends. So they are in this neighborhood that they mention here. If some public places had survived the regime's repression, either it was to leave us a little free space, or else it was out of ignorance. Personally, the latter theory sounded more likely. They probably hadn't the slightest idea what Kansas was. So here they explain, or Marjane explain, that this neighborhood that it seems to be like, I don't know, imagine Zona Rosa in Mexico City. So this neighborhood was still, like a free place, and everybody go there. So they said like, why still is, like not destroyed, or it's not like with police here taking people to prison because they are not respecting the rules. And Marjane says like, well, maybe they really don't know what this place means. And it seems to be true. So they are in the restaurant, and the reason why they wanted to go there is because there were guys. And Marjane says like, well, they weren't interested on me, they weren't paying attention on me, but I saw how was the interaction. So they said that the way of communicating were just, like looking at the eye for a little bit. So that means like, hey, like come outside with us. So when they are following the girls, the sirens start ringing, and there's, like a guy who just it says the scene, what the hell are you doing? Hit the dirt. So it says, we had been told that if we were in the street during a bombing, we should lie down in the gutter for safety. So here it was a misunderstanding, because the gutter, or the gutter means the barracas. No, barracas is not barracas. Like zanjas, like a place that usually we see in movies during war, that it's, like a hole. But also it means la coladera. So that's why, like they are laughing at the end. And immediately we have a scene when Marjane arrives home, that her mother knows that she skipped classes. So her mother is like, where were you? And Marjane says like, oh, in class. Oh, you're lying to me. Like, why are you lying? This, you should study, and you should do this, and you should do that. So Marjane says like, oh, but I had religion class. And her mother says like, that is not true. So you're lying twice. So I know that you had grammar because your teacher called me. So I really cover you, but this is the last time. You shouldn't skip classes. You need to go. You need to, like be responsible. And Marjane says like, oh, you are like a dictator. I am not free, not even in my own house. So she left. Marjane says that the place where she feel a little bit free was the basement. So that's why, she goes there. And also, there's a situation here that says that it says the Iranian army has retaken the place of the name of a place that I don't know how to pronounce, Koramshar, like I don't know. But the mom says like, oh, again, this is the fourth time. Like, why for? And Marjane says like, well, like, but it's our army, like it's our country. And well, Marjane says that because Iraq took this place again, they said like, hey, we can arrive to an agreement, we can arrive to peace. And just read this part. It says, as it as it turned out, they did retake this place. We all thought that the war would finally end. In fact, Iraq proposed a settlement, and Saudi Arabia was willing to pay for reconstruction to restore peace to the area. But our government was against it. They declared, we refuse this imposed peace. So when finally, that there was a possibility of ending the war and making, like peace, the government from Iran says like, no way, we don't want this kind of peace. And later on, Marjane mentioned that, well, here we have, like some images, some, like slogans that they need to continue war and more. But here it says that eventually the regime didn't accept peace, because if they accepted peace, they won't survive. like everything will change. And they didn't want to change. They really want, like to have that regime, that very strict regime, or like the people in the power, the powerful people at the time, that they were moving the police and all the government. So that's why they didn't accept peace. And Marjane says, like, I am so sad because a lot of people could be safe and they weren't. So, well, you know. And also, as a way of revel a little bit in her house because of all the things that are happening. She mentioned that people who wanted really to finish the regime, they really want, this democracy, they were executed. So they are being chased. And there's no freedom outside, and she doesn't feel free inside her house. So that's why, as a way of rebellion, she smoked a cigarette. And well, it says that with this cigarette, I say goodbye to my childhood. Now I am a grown up. Now I am not an adult, but I'm not a kid anymore. And then we have, I'm pretty sure is the last chapter, that is called The Passport. So here we have that I will read just the introduction of this chapter. It says, July 1982. We were at my aunt's place. The internal war had become a bigger issue than the war against Iraq. Anyone showing the slightest resistance to the regime was persecuted. So, not even outside, but also inside, they have conflicts. And here, with her aunt and her uncle, they are having this conversation that the uncle shouldn't smoke because she already had two heart attacks. And the uncle says, like, but the cigarette doesn't cause me, like the disease, like it was the shocking of the bombs. It is the shocking of what is happening in my country, because a lot of kids are being killed. So, well, they also explain that Marjane's cousins, they were sent to other country. They were sent abroad in order to save them. And that the uncle asked the aunt, like, hey, what if we just go with our kids? But the aunt says, like, oh, but what about my family? What about my mother? What about this? So at the end, they didn't do anything, and the borders were closed. Why? Because later on they mentioned that the well, I won't spoil you. Let's just go to that place. So here, later on, it says, some days later, they are listening to the news, and they heard that the embassy was taken. And since the United States embassy was taken, there's no way they give them passports. So, like, no way. So here we have the new, we have the one day that the Marjane's father received a call, and well, her, his brother had a third attack, a third heart attack, and he's in the hospital. So, well, they go to the hospital, and in the hospital, Marjane says that it was a very sad scene because there were some ambulances asking for blood because of the people who was injured in war, and also because of other things. And she said, like, well, I feel sad, but also at the same time angry because of the situation, that she mentioned that war could have been stopped, but the regime didn't want to. So when they entered to the hospital, she even felt worse. You see a lot of people injured, you see a lot of people with no arms, with no legs, like people that probably were screaming because the pain. So she felt bad. When they finally arrived to the room where her uncle was, her aunt is explaining that, well, there was a bomb because they were chasing some people against the regime. So the bomb was very close to their house. So when the aunt went to the living room, she saw the uncle just in the floor. So they bring it to the hospital, and she said like, well, he needs a surgery, an open heart surgery, but here they don't have the doctors, they don't have, like nothing to do it, they are not prepared for this. So the only thing that I can do is to go and see the director of the hospital and ask him for a permit so they can give me a passport and I can go to England. So when they go to see the director, the aunt realizes that it was her ex window washer. So it was just, like a random guy. He probably didn't know anything about medicine. He didn't know anything about hospitals. But he was the chief. He was, like the boss in the hospital. So the guy says, like, well, if God wants to be, to like to save him, he will. And the lady is like, hey, but I need your permit, I need your to be authorized, I need that you authorize this because I want to save him. And the guy says like, if God wants, we will, everything will be according to God. So she is very, like upset about it. So because of that, Marjane's father goes with an acquaintance they mentioned, and this acquaintance, it was like the brother of this guy and Anush, like Uncle Anush, were together in prison. So that's why, like they had heard about the other. So they arrived to this guy's office, that it was a journalist, but his company was closed. So right now he is making some fake passports. And he says like, oh yes, I can do this, it will be ready in a week. And he introduced a girl, that this girl had communist ideas, and she has been chasing because, like her ideas. And the guy says like, well, her brother was working with me, so as a favor she is here, I am hiding her because, like everybody is looking for her and no place is safe. So later on, they agree to, well, the guy agrees to make the passport in a week. So they are like, oh, yes, we will have the passport in some days. And, like the uncle wakes up, so they just go. And the guy says, like, well, I'm so sad. I just want to see my kids. I just want, like to travel to see them, and they are very sad about it. Later on, we have also a very, very sad scene because the girl, like the girl who was being hid, it's found and she is executed. And then when the guy who is making the passport arrived to his house, he saw that everything was a mess. So he says like, I need to run. I need to run away, and he ran away to his family, to his brother, with yeah, where his brother was, and he never made the passport. So Marjane says that 3 weeks later, her uncle passed away, and the same day his real passport arrived, but he never got the chance to use it. So that's very sad. And well, that is the ending of these 8 chapters. As you may see, everything is escalating little by little. We have some scenes, we have some um, experiences that they are very, very sad. They are struggling our heart, like they are squishing our heart, sorry. And well, enough. I really hope that this video helps you to understand a little bit better what is happening, and also that with this video and the previous one you already know a little bit more about Iranian history. Remember that we have our next session on Thursday 21st. Sorry, on Thursday the 20th. So, well, I will see you that day in order to share our opinions. Meanwhile, continue having an excellent reading, continue having an excellent time, and see you soon. Thank you so much. Bye.
We gather around and chat all day. New words to learn in every way. No fear of wrong, just give it a try. We're flying high like birds in the sky. From A to Z we say hello. Each day we watch our language grow. Together we will break the ice. In Talk English we find paradise. Right now, let's talk in English, hear us loud. Breaking barriers, tearing down the clouds. Every word's a step we're taking now. In this club we'll make each other proud. Hey now, let's talk in English, hear us loud. Breaking barriers, tearing down the clouds. Every word's a step we're taking now. In this club we'll make each other proud. With laughter, jokes and stories told. In conversation, hearts unfold. We share, we learn, we understand. Building bridges hand in hand. No grammar rules can hold us still. We're climbing higher up the hill. Every sentence, every phrase. In Talk English, we like the blaze. In Talk English, we like the blaze. Hey now, let's talk in English, hear us loud. Breaking barriers, tearing down the clouds. Every word's a step we're taking now. In this club we'll make each other proud. Hey now, let's talk in English, hear us loud.